Welcome once again to yet some more medieval Minecraft. The name of the game today is Grand Preparation as we begin with creating and enchanting some equipment with some pretty dang crazy mod enchantments, as well as once again leveling up and spending some talent points in arcane magic. It was about time we started trying to find the end, so we picked a random village from our waypoints and began working on a trading situation, as well as leveling some of our cartographers who would hopefully sell us a map to the end portal. And after we got a few of these cartography tables down, we discovered a weird little thing that I didn't know we could do. What? And we also helped the village grow much stronger by gathering up the undesirables from the population and then sending them off on an all-expense-paid trip. I then began work of leveling up the cartographers to journeyman, as that was the level that they give the map I need, and then went and named the village Trade Town at the Waystone for more easy access. Most of the emeralds we used for trading came from sticks, which were pretty easy to get a ton of thanks to the way this mod pack handles cutting down trees. And after days and days spent at the village, trading until we were numb, breeding more villagers, and penning in the ones we really needed, we took a little break from that to go learn a thing or two about this forge controller we collected last episode. At first, I totally thought this was like another mod I had played with before called a smeltery, and originally assumed it was just the wrong type of controller block for the blocks I had access to. Then, after a little bit of research, found out the actual block layout I needed to assemble. And finally, I had myself a little forge, after more struggle than I would care to admit. But after, I figured the fastest way to fuel it up would be by going to the Nether for lava buckets. And while I was doing that, I figured it would probably be a good idea to do a little bit of mining for nether ores. This nether had more than just gold and netherite. There was all sorts of special materials we could grab here, including sinacite, which is equal to iron, and rubies. I collected up all of that stuff and filled my backpack tanks with lava, and headed back home to fiddle fart around with the forge. One cool thing about the forge is creating alloys from multiple metals, which I could only assume would make some next level tools and weapons to aid in our adventure. Another cool feature would be that it seems to be able to smelt multiple ores at once, speeding up the whole process in general, and at least for vanilla metals, the forge doubles what you put into it. Honestly, I'm super happy I discovered this thing because I'm sure it's going to come in big handy. I spent a good amount of time just smelting all of the ores sitting in storage, as well as comparing the armor and weapons made from all the special mythic metals, before I decided it was about time to mix in a bit of adventure, heading to a dungeon that we had found before but never explored. Heading on down into the depths, we broke a few spawners, ransacked a handful of pretty basic loot, and sliced up simple vanilla mobs for a bit. After a tiny bit of exploring, I decided it wasn't really worth our time here, so gathered up the waystone and skedaddled in search of something else. In the distance, I spotted a huge statue overlooking a village and headed directly to it. It turned out to be a depiction of possibly Herobrine, slaying a creeper. Also, the village seemed to be a breeding ground for creepers, which, was less than fun. Upon inspection, the statue was some sort of parkour challenge, so after some trial and error, I was able to get to the top, fight through a number of creepers, and find a room with a couple of nice chests inside. Diamond gear, an enchanted book, a few emeralds, not half bad. Later that night, I found a village with a waystone and desperately tried to sleep through the night before warping home to drop off the many things we have collected so far on this journey. The next thing I came across was this graveyard that I spent a good amount of time at, just grave robbing everyone in the hopes of finding something cool. At last, after overheating in the savannas for a while, I spotted a weird longhouse building village, which also had a waystone, and decided it was time to head back and put in some more work at the homestead. Starting by placing some guards around the place, and then beginning work on a foundation around the new forge. More or less just because we had some levels and books in storage, I decided to hook up a trident to add to my boomerang-esque weapon collection. There was no real reason for it. Its name is Loyal Trident, and it's cool. While searching for more mythic metals, I came across a structure underground. It appeared to be a fortress made entirely out of bone and bricks made from bone, and was inhabited by the undead. The treasure in this place was actually pretty dang good, finding a ton of diamonds within the first few chests. But the reward came with risk, as the undead were able to back me into the wall, and eventually take me out. Luckily, I had made it to this fortress via strip mining, so it was a pretty simple matter of just following my tunnel back to the location I had died to pick my things back up. And after collecting my stuff from the gravestone, I spent just a little bit more time clearing the place of mobs and loot before returning to my search for more mythic metals. And just because I thought it was kinda cool, here's an upgraded monster dungeon that I found in the caves before I headed home. I spent a little more time smelting our ores as I continued working on the area around the forge, putting a manganese chest down outside by the forge controller, and building up some walls to store all the stuff. I also smelted some steel for a steel chest, because it had an insane storage capacity, and began transferring all the ores and bars and gems to the steel chest. At one point, there was a trip to the Nether for some TNT mining, searching for netherite, which did in fact work out for us, thank you very much. And finally, we had to drop a tidbit of lighting around the forge, as well as put up a roof frame, which I used cobble for, and the roof itself, which I used this redwood for, because I think it makes for a pretty good roofing material. So we went ahead and smelted up the netherite, and while doing that, discovered this crazy metallurgium alloy that I decided, hey, you know what? I have all that stuff, and smelted up a piece for myself, not knowing yet that this would end up being a really cool upgrade for myself later on down the line. Anywho, back at the village, I was working on leveling up a new batch of villagers who would hopefully not force me to destroy them, when suddenly there it was, the Lost Castle map. The map that would take me to the place where the portal to the end was hidden away. First things first, before I had found the map, I had intended to prepare my path to the Twilight Forest for when I do eventually go there. So, started working on a pretty little cave to house it, lit it all up, and tossed a diamond into the pond I built, opening the portal to the Twilight Forest dimension. So, just in the name of preparation, I jumped on into the portal, and was instantly pushed back into the overworld. This time when I jumped in, I was able to kill the kobold that was guarding the portal. It seemed we also spawned in a forest that had toxic rain, so we had to hop over to the next biome, where we completed a quest from our log, getting a magic map as the reward. I ran to the nearest group of trees, cutting one down to prepare a little bit of an outpost with a stairway leading up to the portal. You know, just to make our lives a little bit easier later on when we take this realm on. Now it is time to head to that end portal. So, using the waystone, we headed to the Isle del Fuego, which is closest to the point on the map, and began the journey to the castle. Along the way, we even picked up a friend who joined us on the way to land. He must have wanted to quit his job. I told Pansy he could join us until we reached land, and he agreed, so together we set off in search of the land. After a while, the map started to fill itself in, a sign that we were getting close to our goal, and after a small forest and over a lake, the walls of the great stronghold became visible through the fog. This structure was friggin' huge and foreboding, but I intended to conquer this place and take the portal to the end for myself. So first, I rested in a safe room set into the wall of the place to set my spawn and get rehydrated. Then I dug through the walls to get into the courtyard. There appeared to be a village settled into the courtyard, and the residents told me that they, as well as the end portal, were under the control of the evil Illagers. I found an entrance to the castle and headed inside, searching for the Illagers and the treasures they defended. On the way, I tried out the Soul Reaper and summoned myself an undead minion so that I wouldn't have to fight an entire army by myself. So me and my minion began the job of conquering this stronghold in the name of the weirdos and the freaks. Eventually, we stumbled into a ruined room full of overgrown vines and moss, but this was actually the place we were looking for at the center of this room was our end portal. Now that the portal was ours, I placed a waystone down so we could jump back home, deposit some of our loot, and get the eye I had found back in the pyramid into the portal frame. With the waystone set, the ender portal was now firmly under our control, and there was only one thing to do now, and that is to finish destroying the rest of the Illagers within the stronghold. At one point, an evoker summoned a legendary Vex to attack me, and it destroyed every single totem I had collected up to this point. After collecting my dropped equipment, I continued carefully working my way through, trying to safely bow down most of the tougher enemies from afar. After taking out a very large number of the Illager forces, it kind of lost its appeal a little bit. So I decided I could always come back to slay the stragglers later. So I went off and broke a hole in the wall and headed off into the horizon. Not too far off from the stronghold was this cool little stable building too, which I thought deserved to be included in the video, because it's really nice. Back at home, a thunderstorm causes a summoner to spawn, which I quickly run outside to very easily defeat, completing a quest in the process, and collecting a few levels for my trouble. I spent a good chunk of time around my home, forging some new armor out of adamantite and mithril, and since I had plenty of mats, took care of that damn hydration problem once and for all, crafting up and upgrading a whole bunch of canteens all the way up to diamond level. After some time spent boiling water and filling the canteens, I jumped in a boat in search of our next adventure, and hopefully some more eyes to the end.